Great stuff. Right then. Hi everybody. I hope that you're having a great Yocto summit. My name is Alex Lennon. My business is Dynamic Devices up here in Liverpool. It's sunny Liverpool in the northwest of England. And I was hoping to kind of share my journey with continuous integration, build and test, which I'm currently doing with GitHub Actions. Now, I'm based up in, I got to give a shout out to Does Liverpool, the makerspace here, a bunch of fantastic, eclectic people who've taught me a lot of stuff, including some of the stuff I'm going to go through now. And we've been doing embedded Linux since the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, RFS integration services. I work within a kind of an ecosystem of people, and we do, you know, the whole shebang really, soup to nuts concept through to mechanical certification and shipping. We've been a Yocto project participant since 2014. So that's probably why I'm having so many aches and pains nowadays. In fact, I was down in Cambridge when the Embedded Linux conference there back in the day when Yocto was announced, which is back in the midst of time. So very keen on open source, very keen on embedded Linux, and that's a lot of what I do with my commercial work. Now, you know, I'm not trying to tell anybody that there's a kind of a one true way to do any of this stuff. I know there isn't. All I'm trying to do is to share sort of my journey on this process, and I'm really keen to get any feedback that you might have, or comments, or improvements, or maybe if there's interest, we could put some birds of a feather together at some point. I mean, I know I had some feedback from Nico that he's actually using some of this stuff. I think it was, so that's really cool. So I maintain a meta mono layer, which is you know, open standards implementation of the dotNet framework, and I've been doing that for a while. And I wanted to talk about the processes involved in that I've been through, and that is kind of how do I maintain it, how do I improve, how do I learn how to do that myself, how do I improve releases of what I'm putting in there, and oh wow, can we do automated testing that might help me. And then I started kind of looking at how we might build things in the cloud, because as I said, you know, it takes an awful lot of grunt to build this stuff. And then self-hosting on my own hardware in the cloud, which is what I currently do. Spend a lot of time with Jenkins. And nowadays I've kind of gone over to use GitHub predominantly. And I discovered these self-hosted runners not all that long ago, and they kind of blew me away. And that's kind of really what prompted wanting to just have a bit of a chat with you about this. I don't quite know how long I'm going to go for here. So depending on where I get to, you know, if we have time, we might have a little look at adding a new test into the continuous integration build. And we possibly might even have a look at something else I'm doing with more deeply IoT sensor embedded firmware. So if the Linux system is the edge gateway, how do we then deploy firmware over kind of LPWA connections? But you know, that's more just to fill time if we need to. Very pleased to answer any questions you have. I'm sort of trying to concentrate on keeping this going, so I might miss any questions that you do have. If so, apologies. Please, you know, prod me at me later on. I'm on the Libera chat here, or you know, social media. Metamono repo. So, getting going. How did it all begin? Well, props to Atif Khan, who created Metamono in 2012. And I got involved, as I say, because I was doing a lot with Windows CE, dotNet Compact Framework for devices. And, you know, for my sins, I like the Visual Studio toolchain. You know, of course, VS Code, that's more acceptable nowadays, I suppose. And I wanted to continue using that. And I wanted to deploy my dotNet apps onto embedded Linux. Mono was there. I thought, wow, this is great. You know, and I kind of got to the point where I could more or less seamlessly put my applications, you know, between Windows CE and Mono. So then, you know, that's how I got involved. I use Yocto a lot in my work, and I wanted to do a little bit. You know, I don't do a lot. I'm kind of hanging around on the edges, but I wanted to do a little bit to try to contribute something back to this great community that's doing all this amazing work. So Atif stepped back, and I took the lead on trying to maintain the layer. Fairly poorly, I imagine, back in 2014, and it was challenging, you know, because in the early days, Mono was kind of, I mean, Mono was great, very complicated beast, and it would kind of break when I was cross compiling it. I could never quite figure out why. And I was faffing around and I was trying to work out what to do. In of itself, never mind Yocto, but Mono takes quite a long time to compile. And I had a matrix of architectures and a matrix of different releases of Yocto to try to sort of kind of support. That's what I was hoping to do. And I was just trying to figure out how to do this, you know, how to manage the process. And, you know, the time constraints, of course, are a big thing as well. So I found it quite hard going for me personally, following the kind of diffing and email patching mechanisms when we were back on the yoctoproject.org site. You know, I don't know, that's just me. And I found it was, I just felt that it was, I mean, it's kind of a niche thing anyway, but I felt it was quite hard to kind of build engagement to get people in and sort of chat to them and interact and enthuse them, which is something I'm maybe not great at, but I'm trying to do. It's something I think that should be, some effort should be put into. So Michael Halstead helped me a lot, and I migrated MetaMono over to GitHub in 2019. My thinking then was, you know, wouldn't it be good to be able to leverage pull requests, you know, forks and pull requests and issue management, chats, and all that good stuff. And it's mirrored back to the yoctoproject.org. And so now that seemed quite good. I like that. And I thought, right, okay, now what's next? Can I, you know, can I add in some automated testing? What do I do about this? Because I want to just kind of leave these builds running and, you know, get the green light, red light, and you know, make my life easier. Now, again, I'm absolutely sure that yourselves and your own companies, you're doing these kinds of things. I'm definitely not trying to teach anybody how to suck eggs, but I haven't really heard anybody talking about this in the public sphere, so I just thought maybe it would be interesting to have that conversation. So, as ever, Yocto came to the rescue, and I discovered the Yocto project test framework. And that, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is a lovely little setup. I can put some Python test cases inside my layer. And in here, you can see sort of a basic starting point. I've got a mono compile test class, and that requires SSH to be available to me, because what this is doing is it's running these tests inside a QEMU emulator or whatever architecture it might be. So it kind of brings up the emulator, runs up my image that I've built for that emulator, connects into it, and runs these tests and goes, yeah, that all worked, or no, it didn't work. And I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. So you can see, if I can find it, you can see in the, hopefully you can see that the lib OEQA runtime, we've got these test cases. That was a snippet I was just showing you. We copy some files across, we compile those files, we run the resulting executable with Mono, we check that we've got the output that we want, and hey presto, that's passed. That's great. And that's really all there is to it. But you can see how extensible that is. If I get some really basic tests in there, again, because of the problems I said that I've had checking that Mono builds and runs applications, you get you know, missing shared libraries. So this is just a really basic, does it work kind of thing. And you can see the files there as well. They're just sort of in full of links. So you can add into that as you need to. So if I can go back to the presentation there. Actually looking at how we do this. So this is the test image support. And to enable that, you may know that you go through your local.conf, and there's a little bit down here, image classes, and you need to enable that. Image classes add in the test image support. And then I've got a test mono image that I use, and I've pre-built that. So I've done the bit bake of the test image mono. And to run these tests, I now run the command test image. And so that now, with a bit of luck, fingers crossed, that runs up the QEMU emulator. You can see there, hopefully, assuming my GPU is crazy things. And that's booting up the Yocto image that I just built. And what it's going to do is go through that, and it's going to run those tests that we looked at, and it's going to give me a set of results out of that as to whether it worked or whether it didn't. It takes a little bit of time. Again, I'm on a laptop here. It's quite a it's a gaming laptop, you know, but it all takes time, doesn't it? So while that's doing its thing, maybe I'll just kind of step on and say that for people who have the slides are on the site. If you want to look at that, I'm sure you can Google, but there's some links to the test environment, docs and QEMU, and then the test cases that I've got in there in the public repo on GitHub, which you can take. And there's a couple of fiddly bits to do with getting taps set up for QEMU, which need to be looked at, but it's all pretty straightforward. So that QEMU is still doing its thing. I'll carry on. I'll talk a little bit about where we got to next before I come back to that. Now, that's okay, but I want to be doing stuff with my laptop. I don't want to be building Yocto on it all the time. I did have this other build box I was telling you about. I kind of went by the by. And if we look at kind of the support that's out there, I did quite a lot of hunting around for cloud services, and I talked to the folks at AppFair, Travis CI, some other ones, and they were great. They were really, really helpful, really supportive of open source. Not a bad word to say about these people. They're fantastic, and they give you free resources to run your open source test projects. Great, but Yocto is a big old beast, and my build box, as I say, is 8-core 32 gig. AppFair is like a 2-core 6 gig, and Travis CI is 2-core, a bit more. I got those yesterday off the web. Hopefully they're about right. And they limit you, don't they? Because this resource costs money, so they limit you to about an hour. They're really helpful to me. They extended that time for me, but I mean, I was taking like 8 to 10 hours or something. It was crazy. It was taking a really long time, and that could have been me, but I couldn't make it work. So I I kind of went around the houses, and I had to try to sort of figure out what to do about that. Now, I'm just going to come back a little bit because we've finished, and I just wanted to show you that we've got the results from this set of test cases. Woohoo! You can see that they've all passed. Name of the test, very, very basic, just a command line hello world, and I do a WinForms and a GTK version because that's like the most basic of the basic stuff. And it's very happy. How long it took, brilliant. That's really nice. I think it's great. So moving back onto cloud. So I couldn't really find anything in the cloud that was going to do what I needed. These amazing people over at Does Liverpool that I was telling you about, they told me about this Hetzner service, and I should say I'm in no way commercially affiliated to these people. I make no money out of them. I just think they're brilliant, and they're over in Germany. They do this stuff called server auctions, which is what I did, and I think what it is they've got like hardware that's been under contract, and maybe that sort of finishes, and then it's freed up, and they just bang it on this server auction, and you kind of find what you want, and it's a really good price, and you pay a rolling monthly fee, and the service is well, top notch. Really, really like them. They're my go-to place. So I've got a couple of boxes with them. The other thing that was recommended to me was Proxmox, which you may seem a little bit of a detour, and you may well know about it, but it's an open source server virtualization environment that runs on whatever, and you can put your virtual machines and containers in there, start them, stop them, back them up, replicate them, really, really good stuff. I'm kind of figuring out as I go along. Now, if we look at Proxmox, here is my Proxmox box, which is, I'm just gonna stop for a second on about 13, 14 minutes. I'm trying to keep myself under control. This is my Proxmox box. This is physical hardware, 8 CPUs, 32 gig, nice and grunty. What I need, and it's lovely, it gives you the web UI thing here, tells you all the CPUs and server load and all the good stuff. Really, really nice, love it. Lots of different bits and pieces that you can play with there, most of which I don't understand, but there we go. And I've got a bunch of different containers and virtual machines running on this stuff for different projects I've got going on. But the one that's of interest today is the GitHub runner that I've got here. And you can see if I look at the summary of this. So this is the subset of the physical machine resources. I've given this in 6 CPUs. I've given it 16 gig, and that's more than enough for what I need. I can have a look at what's been going on there. And I'm going to just jump forward a little bit and show you that if I go into the shell through the Proxmox web UI, I run this lovely little kind of auto startup thingy tool called PM2, and I have inside this, I have a GitHub runner, which is running. I'll come back onto that. But what we can do is we can leave that sort of logging, and that's showing me the logs of what my runner is doing. Hopefully. So I think I need to move on a little bit. So I won't delve into that too much more, but I find it's a really powerful environment to be working within. And when things go badly wrong, I can just back out an image and I can start again. It really works for me very well. So Hetzner and Proxmox. Yeah, that's what we've just done. We had a look at one of my Proxmox boxes, and I as before, I'll put a couple of reference links up for you there if you but you know, just for posterity. So then, when I got all that set up, and when I set up Proxmox, I hunted around, you know, what can I use for my builds, and Jenkins seems to be, to me, the obvious choice. Used that for years, and I haven't got it running anymore, but there's a little picture of how it used to be back in the day. And you can see I had a matrix of builds. I had a different releases of Yocto and different architectures that I was testing out against. And you know, again, Jenkins, great, load of work gone into it, very comprehensive, millions of plugins all over the place. And it was probably me, but I just could never really get it kind of just to do exactly what I wanted. You know, I could never really fiddle with it and I faffed with it, and I couldn't get it. What I wanted was, I wanted the GitHub, you know, workflow to be somebody throws in a PR, triggers up all these builds, all, you know, works or fails, and it kind of goes to me, haha, you know, that's what's happened. And I could never manage that. So that just kind of carried on really until I then discovered GitHub Actions, which I really like. Now, your GitHub Actions, what am I on here? So GitHub Actions are a little bit of sort of structured YAML, YML file, and you can see that if we have a look in the repo here. So if I go back to MetaMono and we look in .github workflows, I've got a little CI GitHub workflow that I created. This is where all the magic happens. And I just take you through this because, I mean, again, if you know all about this, apologies, but it was new to me and I think it's great. So it sets up you commit this file into your repo, and then when sets of actions happen, like GitHub, the framework there, it goes and it checks these files and tries to work out what it needs to do. And those kinds of things can be, we're telling it here, if I push to the master or master next branch, or somebody puts in a pull request from a fork, this is going to run. And then what it does is it runs a build and test job. And I've told it that that job needs to run on a self-hosted runner. So that comes back to that little stub I was showing you in the Proxmox VM. And what it then does, and it gets a little bit crazy, but inside the container on Proxmox, I then have Docker running. And in Docker, I then run an image of my Yocto CI build host environment. And what that gives me is controllability. So I've built up my Yocto build environment, which actually I've got a couple of different ones because I need different things for some of the older versions of Yocto, releases of Yocto. And I know exactly what's going on there. So I know what my versions of dependencies are, and that doesn't change. That's nice. A couple of options, a couple of magic things you need to do to be able to set up QEMU to run properly, which I'll talk about in a sec. I do a build matrix. So currently we're building Mono 6.12. I'm building on the Kirkstone release on this branch, which effectively is kind of the master build branch. And I'm building for 3 different architectures, x86, 64, ARM, and ARM64, and that will all just happen. Then it sets all that stuff up in environment variables, and then it goes through a set of steps. It checks out the mono layer, it checks out or updates Pocky. I actually said that right, didn't I? It pulls the meta OpenEmbedded layer, updates that. It's all a bit clunky, apologize for that, but you know, it works. And then it configures up my BB layers to point to MetaMono, MetaOpenEmbedded, MetaOE, and it configures up the test image that we said we needed in local.conf. With all that done, it then does a build, sets the couple of variables in to control for the version of Mono I want to test out, and I just do all that, and I bit bake my test image Mono to get that done. With that working, hopefully, it goes on to a testing phase, and it does essentially the same thing, but you can see it runs that with the test image command. And that's where the magic that we looked at, QEMU coming up and testing those test cases, and it'll work or it didn't work. And off we go. Another lovely little feature of this is that when it's all worked, I can tell it that I want to take the artifacts that have been generated and just put them somewhere. So this is taking everything in the deploy temp deploy images folder, and it's shooting it up to, I don't know where really, some magic place inside GitHub, which is cool. And if I show you that, the last, did a few tests, the last thing that ran, there you go, there's a 4.6 gig zip of, or table, whatever it is, of the artifacts that I built. Again, really like that. So then just sort of checking on time here. So coming up to it, all right. Then I wanted to sort of show you this workflow that I was talking about that I think sort of is really where I've been wanting to get to. And so if somebody comes along and they, you know, done a fork, done some work, want to do a PR, have a chat about it, contribute it in, then they can create that pull request out of their fork. In my case, I'm just going to do that out of my my branch. And actually, probably what I need to do is to get rid of this pull request. Let's see if I can make this work. New pull request from that feature branch. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to create that pull request. And we'll call it, I don't know, we'll leave it at that, testing, boom, and that's created that up. And as if by magic, look at that. It knows, because it's gone, it's looked at the YAML, it knows what it needs to do, it knows it needs to do some testing, and it started running these this matrix of tests that we just looked at before. I can go and look at the details of that, and it's already running through these steps, which we kind of touched upon, didn't we? And that's running on my box, wherever it is, somewhere in Germany. And all the logging is being pumped back, and I can see this in real time through GitHub, through these GitHub Actions, which I like that, you know. So that's going through now. Again, I've sort of built it before, of course, to save you time. And that build has succeeded because a lot of it was cached. So I'm kind of keeping all the pre-built stuff so we don't have to go through this over and over again. And then we go through the testing process, and you see this is kind of just a little bit faster than it was on my laptop. And now what it's doing is it's running up that QEMU in the background. You can't see anything, of course. And in a bit, it'll come back, and with a bit of luck, it will tell us that it ran all the tests and it all worked and it's happy. And that is just about to tell us that now. Boom, 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 passed. No failures, and now it's uploading all of those artifacts, which are going to sort of pop up and appear in somewhere in GitHub. And while that's going on, I see there's a question. I'll come back to it, I promise. While that's going on, you know, I can go back to my actions, and you can see it. So this one's in progress. The previous one was green, and when we go back to the PR, eventually, when this succeeds through all of its matrix, it'll just all go green and it's all done. And so, you know, when I get up in the morning, I go in and if it's green, I just, oh, thank you very much, have a quick look, and you know, off we go. And if it's not green, I can go, oh, you know, let's have a chat. Let's decide, you know, what's up here, what do we need to fix. And so that works for me. Each to their own, of course, but you know, that does work for me. Now, so we're really getting up there a little bit. If I okay, so I may have missed some questions, but I see one from Shorigan. How do you handle S-state reuse? So essentially what I do is anything I need to persist within the Docker container, I can do a mount point outside of that Docker container, which is then within my VM container, as it were, so that the next time that Docker container is pulled up, it's still running my environment that I want, but I've got all of the S-state files, whatever I actually wish to store. So hopefully that sort of deals with that one. I don't see any others, but there we go. And then we go back to the presentation, GitHub Actions, self-hosted runners. Might be worth having a quick look at self-hosted runners. So you can see in here that the logs of the runner showing that it just did those builds, and it's currently running through the ARM build, which is kind of what we expect. we go over to how I set this up on the GitHub end. Within Actions, we've got this runners bit. Now, I configure a pool of runners within my dynamic devices organization, and I say what repos they will run on. And so I've got these two runners. I've got one runner. You can see that you can tag these things up. So it's self-hosted, it's Linux, it's an x64, and it's active. It's the one doing the build. I have a rather wonderful little runner as well, which is an ARM64 runner, which isn't doing very much. But when I want to do like real true native builds of stuff, I can go onto that one. And that one is running Proxmox Pi on my Raspberry Pi 4 on a public IP outside of Liverpool. So this is not quite as fast as the German box, but it works, and I've got a GitHub runner on my Raspberry Pi 4. I forget the name of the enclosure, but it's got like an M.2 on the bottom of it, so I've got a load of SSD to do this stuff on, and I can get that going, and it's the same thing. I can see if it's running. Yeah, there you go. So the M2 and that's just sitting there not doing very much. So those are kind of the main things I wanted to go through. If I've got a little bit of time, I've got a little bit of time left. So what I then just wanted to very, very quickly run through, if I can find it, is probably this. Yeah. So if I go into lib, and you can see here an example of how you might just extend this. And so all I did was I added in a new file called Hello Yocto Summit. And in the setup, that gets copied across to, in this case, the QEMU emulator, yeah? And then it's destroyed when we end. And then I've added in a new test case, which is compiling that Hello Yocto Summit source to an executable, running it, checking the output. There we go, etc., etc. Now, I've already committed that into a feature branch. Branch now. So what I could try and do, I haven't done this, so this may or may not work, fingers crossed. And we'll go do that. Let's try that. Ooh, not thinking. That. Okay. And that's gone up. So with a bit of luck, that's now gone into my MetaMono, and it says, ta-da, you've just had this new PR, or rather you've just had this new push to this feature branch. You want to create a pull request. I'm going to create a pull request. Now, I got a limited pool of these builders, of course. So, this is going to wait until the other workflow is done. But I can go in and I'm just going to say, look, and that's boring. I'm going to stop that run. Thank you very much. And then what that should do, it takes a little while to sort itself out, but that should then kill that. And then one of these will pick up and it will start running, and we can see what we can see. Probably not. There you go. So that's just picked up. I might possibly have time to show you the end of this. We will see. While that's working, state reuse, togbles, and yeah. I mean, it's artified uploads and togbles. You're right. I mean, I just got a monolithic thing just because I did. But you could do all sorts of interesting things there. I mean, you just set the paths up and you can sort of break this up if you wanted to. It's really nice. And thank you for the kind comments. Yeah, so that's sort of nearly there. I'm going to get to the end of this, maybe. I think we might just be able to. 40 seconds left by my clock. And it shouldn't take too long, hopefully. And trying the background, booting up Yocto, spreading over. But while that's running, I mean, there's a couple of other things I wanted to say. I mean, if we could sort of pivot this over to packages and putting packages up, I'd be really interested in that discussion. Okay, I don't know. I've done something wrong. It's not run my extra test, so I failed at the last step. But hopefully that was of interest to you. Like I say, any thoughts, comments, improvements, alternatives? I'd be really interested in having that chat. Please see me Embedded IoT on Twitter, or you'll find me around and about lurking somewhere. So, thank you very much.